Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And Casen, you'll notice we were just talking about hats a moment ago before we started the show. Uh, I forgot I had this Guardians hat that was a friend of the show, Dylan, got for me when the new gear came out and the rebrand happened. And I thought it
Yeah.
went really well with this Spider-Man shirt. So that's that's why I'm wearing this hat today. Um, what's yours?
I don't know. It might be backwards. It says win
It
for
is
the
win. Okay, I
yeah.
like that. We got a great show today. We're gonna. This is another situation where we have a pretty landmark thing that involves college athletics, maybe the most significant of all time. That we're probably going to spend the most of our show talking about. We're going to check in on the NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs, of course, and then we're going to do of the weeks, obviously. I did want to start the show by saying it will be Memorial Day when this show
There we go.
drops. We're doing it on Sunday, and just wanted to thank you all who have served and are currently serving. We hope you have a everybody out there, veterans included or not, is having a great long weekend as I am with my friend here checking back in. And we're doing this on a Sunday, so it'll come out Monday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So we are going to start today's show. I'll go ahead and address this right off the bat too. We're going to be off a couple of weeks for kind of a summer break, really, for Casen and myself, and just things going on in both of our lives. So this will be our last show for a couple of weeks, probably until mid-ish June, maybe mid back end of June. And I'm really glad we're doing a show today, Casen, because I've had a lot of folks, decent number of people, very interested, obviously, in my opinion, on the news that dropped about 3 days ago. That in college athletics that I've heard multiple people say is probably this most significant day in the history of American college athletics, which I agree with, and we'll get to why it is. But specifically, if you don't know what we're referring to, it is essentially the NCAA and power conferences and the Power Five have approved a settlement that makes way for players to be paid directly. There's a lot of moving parts to this, but essentially, it's an antitrust lawsuit ruling in house versus the NCAA that has essentially paved the way for NCAA institutions, to pay their athletes specifically at the Power Four, Power Five level. That is the onset of what the news actually is, and this would go into effect. Everything we're going to talk about today would go into effect going into the 2025 football season, essentially. Fall athletics season. Um, I'll let you start because I could talk a lot. I'm going to talk from a lot of different angles on this as much as I can. I'm going to speak candidly on it because I can from inside experience, but you're someone from the outside of the actual industry, and I think it would actually be more. I'd be more interested to hear what you have to say. What was your reaction? There's so many things we can go talk about. So get us started.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with just saying that, I with the implementation of the NIL stuff a couple years ago, we definitely kind of saw it heading this way. We kind of were anticipating this for a while, so it's not entirely surprising. I'm personally a little surprised that it was this fast,
Yeah.
that it was this quickly. Um, but I think definitely part of what's going to happen is I think this is going to essentially sort of make the NIL stuff kind of pointless
Mm,
because like if you can just pay them anyway, like I mean, you know what I'm saying?
right.
Like I think NIL at that point is really only going to be used for the non-power four conferences that
They'll
aren't
have
part
to.
of this framework. I think that's really the only part of it. And so because NIL really only got that big because of the way, and so it definitely makes sense because it feels like this is sort of a way to regulate the unregulated NIL stuff. Like from my understanding of the situation, there's going to be like a salary cap type of thing, and then obviously there'll be NIL potential on top of that as well. But so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, I think definitely the biggest takeaway from this whole thing, which maybe you can talk more in depth over how it's going to work, but is that we need to separate the Power Four conferences from everybody else. Like
Mm.
it is a completely separate thing, and they should not be competing against each other for championships. Like that just is not a thing
With the
that should
group
be
of five, you
happening.
mean?
Yeah,
Hmm.
Like they're not on the same playing field anymore at this
Well,
point.
like in a lot of ways, like it's official now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think this is like the nail in the coffin, so to speak, to say, okay, like they are actually officially like we're writing the line in the sand that they are like separate now because they're going to operate a certain way. They can straight up do things that the group of five, at least for now, is not going to be able to do in terms of treating their athletes like employees and things like that. It's funny you say I could talk more on how this is all going to be implemented because, to be completely honest with you, that's like the first thing I had to say is I don't know how it is because it's certainly not going to be able to be the same everywhere. However, these individual institutions want to go about paying their players and who gets paid, because one of the things I thought of immediately is okay, Title IX's got to play a factor here. Like, how are you, like, who chooses what women's sports teams get these salaries as well? I would
Yeah.
imagine in most places it's going to be the women's basketball team,
Yeah.
if not some others as well. But there's something to be said within the institution in terms of fairness of that as well, because a move like this was really made with only football and men's basketball in mind, women's
Mm-hmm.
basketball too, really, as well at this point, especially after last season and where that sport is now. But getting back on track to kind of where I'm thinking about this, it's interesting you say that because it's all, you know, that I said way back on like the sports corner days when you would, jump on the show here and there with us, radio show I used to speak on in college. Been saying for a long time that it would be kind of nice if we can still compete with each other, but Group of Five had its own national championship and its own playoff. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, granted, that was before the playoff we're about to get, right? Which we haven't even yet seen how it's actually going to go. You know what I mean? But to your point, I've always been saying that like in terms of just like the outcome, because it would be nice if we could like if a Bowling Green could win a national championship, but it's still considered Division 1 level.
Mm-hmm.
Now like is it going to be almost necessary, because I don't think we're going to really see the effect of how this is going to work until probably probably by the end of the decade, if I'm being honest with you, Casen, because
Mm-hmm.
that, like, how is it going to, it's going to affect so many things. How's it going to affect recruiting? How is it structurally going to change sports? Are we going to see the almost necessary creation of an actual players union? Like, I'm to the point where there actually kind of needs to be one. um or one will somehow emerge. There will
100%.
be a governing body that
Yeah.
speaks on behalf of those employees at those universities, right? At a sheer necessity, because we're essentially saying, okay, so this is like half professional. I've heard this term thrown out a lot too, right? It's the end of amateurism. And a lot of people have been, like a lot of folks on ESPN, a lot of the talking heads, which we are, ironically, we're two talking heads, but a very, very niche audience, right? Um, they've been really dogging the NCAA. And I'm going to say a few things about specifically the NCAA. I'm going to try to say this that I've never said on this show before. Obviously, I'm pro NCAA. I mean, with what I do, because as I've tried to explain to everybody, if you think of the NCAA as the commissioner of the league, so to speak, the commissioner works on behalf of the owners in a professional league, right? The NCAA is just the governing enforcement body of the schools. The schools are really who they are um, working on behalf of, and without the NCAA there, no one at all would get paid in college athletics, right? We're talking everybody,
Mm-hmm.
coaches, folks like myself, communications offices, other things like that, and every level, trainers, everybody. And that's why I've always told people, it's like, if you don't work within the industry, you don't understand really fundamentally why the NCAA is always going to be necessary to be there, because you're always going to need a governing body and you're always going to need a structure in place that enforces the rules, right? That being said, I also see the other side where it's like, for years you can't just hide behind the fact that it's like pseudo minor league professional sports here, um and call it amateurism. And I'm like, well, amateurism in the sense of they're not technically professional athletes, but this essentially will make them professional athletes, at least on paper, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they're still athletes competing at the college level, right? It's not quite professional ball at any level, right? And so that gap is even farther in sports like, say, hockey and baseball, right? Whereas there's a mountain of difference between how good the professionals are to the college level, right? And so I say all that to say this. Ultimately, I think this is a good thing. I have just been racking my brain as to like, okay, how is this going to affect like my life? You know what I mean? Because or in other schools, because I currently am not with a group of like a Power Five, Power Four school, but I could see myself working for one again in the future. I did in the past in Indiana, and like what does it look like by the time that happens? Like what does this look like by 2029, 2030? Because this feels like the last genie just got out of the bottle, right?
Yeah.
I said a lot of stuff, so I want to hear you talk about anything I said.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, I'll again sort of just go back to the amateurism part of it as well, and just say that like I as far as like those arguments in that statement, like amateurism's been dead for 35 years since, since there, was billions of dollars going into the Final Four. And
TV money really took off.
yeah, like
Yeah,
once ESPN and TV money just sort of funneled into everything, and it just became the beast that that it's been for our entire lifetime. It wasn't an amateur thing anymore. Like once you have programs like Duke basketball or Alabama football or Ohio State football, like it's just it those are not, like, those have not been amateur athletes or amateur programs for a very, very long time.
yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's just how that goes. And um so it's more or less just sort of regulating where the money is going and how it's, coming, and how it's, being distributed and stuff like that. So yeah, I think we'll have to see the impact it has on, the primary revenue sports like football and basketball, because I would agree. I'm very curious as to what impact that has on recruiting, on the talent disparity and things like that. But for the most part, for 90% of student athletes in college, this is probably a huge deal, because you're talking about kids who, I who are able to go to a school like Stanford on a golf scholarship, or a baseball, softball, whatever. And because of that, they have to spend, most of their time not in the classroom on at practice.
Yeah.
And so now they're able to get paid
On top of that,
whatever they can, for their time that they're putting into it.
yes,
And so because that was the biggest thing, was that they're not is that you have these student athletes who, for a lot of the case, don't have money, that they're only in the school that they're in because of the scholarship they got. And so they don't really have money to be able to afford to live. And because of their schedule, and sometimes they even can't do it if they can't get jobs. And
right.
so they don't have any way of getting money.
And
And
that's why
so
NIL initially was really good.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
this is now going to compensate, the non-revenue sports, to where NIL isn't really a factor, in some of your, non
The
front face,
way
like
I
less
I
popular
I
sports.
agree, Case, and I do foresee a situation though where some of those non-revenue sports still don't actually are not paid by some institutions because they cannot be, um, distribution wise. If it works like you just described, it's great because everyone gets compensated. I would imagine that's how a lot of these schools are going to try to make it. Uh, in terms of like
Right.
exposure to the university by you competing in any sport, right?
Well, what I'm thinking is, like, maybe not at a school, like the one that we attended, or something like that, where the money just isn't there.
Mm,
But at non-revenue sports, at the big schools, where they do have that money,
yeah,
I think they would be able to throw around, actual, monthly stipends to be able to pay the non-revenue athletes
yeah.
for
So
being there.
you'd
I
hope,
don't
right?
know.
You'd
You
hope,
you
but
hope. I mean, there is
um,
always the chance that this would then just lead them to cutting those
right.
sports.
There's another piece of this that I kind of wanted to wait to mention because I do think we should talk about it. One of the things in this antitrust, there are multiple antitrust cases that are getting litigated here. I just want to make that clear. And all of them have different implications, but this was the big one that kind of sets the table for the rest of them, right?
Mhm.
One of the things in this stipulation that we didn't mention earlier that we should bring up now, we should bring it here, is athletes who were competing at these universities from 2016 on. So even if they're not there anymore, in the last 8 years or so, are going to get some form of compensation to the tune of like a total of 2.75. I've seen a couple different numbers, 2.75 to 2.77 billion dollars. I have no
Mhm.
clue how that's supposed to. And so if you went before 2016, I guess you're kind of like you're out of luck. But for even 2016 and back, like or on, so to speak,
I
I have no idea
mhm.
how necessarily they're going to be able to determine who gets what in
Mhm.
terms of compensation there. And I almost see that
Well,
starting litigation
I saw
itself.
something. I saw something about a breakdown and about like how much the conferences were paying,
Mm.
and it was sort of a ridiculous breakdown because it was like it was like the Big Ten was on the hook for like 7% or something, or like the percentages of how it broke it down were just wildly not equal. It was like the Big Ten is on the hook for like 8%, but then the MAC is on the hook for 2, and it's like, okay, the MAC should be on the hook for like 0.4. Like
Yeah.
what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like
The 2% is just for midweek action
like
over the last 10 years.
it's yeah. I mean it's like everybody else, like compared to like what the SEC and Big Ten are responsible for paying, they're still paying way too much for not having any money to
Yeah,
pay.
I would think 45 to 50% would be the Big Ten and the SEC alone. Like
Right,
if we were
exactly.
really doing this, like I will also say it's funny you bring that up because every single breakdown and chart I've seen about this whole thing in the last 3 days have been like ridiculous. Like I'm like, okay, so it's clear that no one has any idea how this is how this is actually gonna like work or look like.
Yeah,
Uh
I have no idea. It's just the thought processes are that like the determining percentages are like being driven by like the Big Ten and the SEC, and so they're like trying to foot the bill to everybody else,
yeah.
or some. I don't know. I have
I
no idea.
I
It's just
have had a
there is a concern
mhm.
that whatever comes out of this could, I mean, effectively bankrupt a lot of mid-major programs because they just are not going to be able to pay this money.
Yeah, that being said, if it is so determined that institutions like a lot of smaller mid majors, of which we not names, but obviously we know those places are. Yeah, I really hope that doesn't bury those places. Now, I've had a lot of, I've had some people like on TikTok and everything, like some places on social media as we consume, right, Case, and people are so alarmist, and it's like this is the end of college athletics as we know it. I'm like, no, it isn't, guys. Like college athletics as a whole are more popular than pro sports in this country. Okay, I was like that.
Mhm.
So, but if you want to say in terms of amateurism, like it's just pseudo pro sports now, that's not necessarily wrong. That being said, I guess I've continuously I've people like the abolish the NCAA folks. It's like call it whatever you will, but there needs to be a governing body to make all of this work. And if it's not the NCAA, it'll be some other institution that you'll substitute the NCAA at. If the NCAA some sort of no longer existed or people decided to leave it, there's always going to be a
Well,
governing body, or else it's just going to be chaos. Like you can't.
no, well, so here's the thing. I don't know. I mean,
Time will tell.
we'll take this out if you don't want to leave this in. But
Mm.
the I mean the general fact of the matter is that this predicament that we're in right now is because of the NCAA's refusal to even get any amount of responsibility towards the sport of football.
Mm.
Their refusal to actually govern the sport of football allowed the sport of football to drive the entire rest of the NCAA.
No, I agree.
That is just a fact
That's a
of
fact. It
the
is
conference realignment we have been seeing the last couple of years is strictly because of
because of
football.
football.
Everybody knows
And
that.
and we said that right here on the show. I mean, this
And
is
so
being made with
and
just
so
that in
because
mind.
of the fact that they refuse to even like the NCAA is not a governing body for football. Like
No,
they
it's
are
not.
not. Like they are just straight up not. Like the college football playoff is not an NCAA recognized thing. It's
No.
essentially like an ESPN invitational that we just agree the winner is the winner.
Yeah.
Like that is just the fact of
It's
how this
not like
operates.
the actual NCAA tournaments that happen at the end of each season for the other
Mm-hmm.
sports, obviously.
It's the actual NCAA like football championship is FCS. Like that's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
The everything else is just sort of we just agree
Its
that
own
this means
committee,
something.
or
Yeah,
yeah, and I think people forget that. Like even the bowl games are all done by committee and
exactly.
by invitation, and yeah, they all kind of run their own thing based on those committees and whoever is sponsoring it, right? I think a lot of people also forget that, but it's interesting you say all that because one, I agree. That's plain to see. Even if you're a fan or whatever, all of these moves are being made because with football in mind first over everything. I will say though, I'm not sure what the NCAA could have done to really enforce any kind of like what does that regulation look like over the previous 10 years? Are you talking like step in when the realignment stuff was happening, or
Well, I mean we've seen it in basketball. Like
mm-hmm.
the like they for I mean we saw a little bit of it with the Patino stuff, but like the NCAA gets their hands dirty preventing these programs from getting out of hand
Mm,
when it's a sport that they actually have governing control over.
interesting.
Like when
Yeah.
football, it's been the Wild West for 35 years, and it grew into this just amalgamation of whatever we thought it should be, and nobody had any idea of how to stop it. Like
Right.
it was a runaway train, and no one
Still
had.
is.
I mean, like that. That's why the most powerful man in college athletics is Greg Sankey because he's
Mm,
got way more power than Charlie Baker.
mm,
Everybody knows that.
right.
Like Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, is the most powerful person in college athletics because
Yeah.
whatever he wants happens. Like that's just a fact.
And that's by and large the most powerful football conference, right? From the top down. And you don't make moves like those realignments without that. Kind of bringing it back. I'd like to bring it back a little bit here. Um, very good points overall. That being said, I mean, I don't think we're going to see any necessarily more regulation, but maybe this whole situation will open the door for better regulation in order to get these quote unquote employees paid, right? And you
Yeah.
hope that the schools, it's not going to be the same everywhere. I mean, obviously that's going to be used in terms of recruiting, but I can definitely see an avenue in which potentially this could get better.
I mean, I bring it down to like how this is actually going to affect the sports. I think I think this could actually be really good for a school like a Vanderbilt to
Hmm.
where I don't really know for sure what's up with their NIL ability as to why it seemingly isn't fixing their issues. But with a school like Vanderbilt that has money, there's money in in the school
Absolutely.
that they could pay, to compete against some of these other SEC programs. And so
In football,
in
because they're
football,
they're quite good in
yeah.
baseball and other sports.
Well, that's the other thing too
Yeah.
is that for a sport like or for a team like Vanderbilt baseball,
Hmm.
they're those kids put a lot of work in. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
they are basically a professional baseball
Oh,
team.
just yeah. Yeah. I mean, um, it's interesting because I remember when we were talking about this. Take us back to realignment a little bit. Like last summer, when we were like like 10 months ago or so.
Yeah.
When we talked about after the big shifts were happening right before this past fall year, right? And will go into effect this coming football season. One of the things we said is, how is this really going to show like I remember saying something along the lines that I'll reiterate here. I think you're going to see a weird number of programs shift in terms of being good and some that get way worse as a result for different things. And that was
Mhm.
strictly just because of alignment. We were talking about what reasons why, students pick schools and pick a program versus another. Now, when you add money on top of that, it's like, all right, am I willing to go forward with like the crazy travel if I'm getting paid X amount of money by
Yeah.
the school and I have a potential to make money and NIL on top of that? Um, and I just think this adds another layer of
Well,
how this is
see,
really going to affect some, and we don't
it
know what the effects are going to be yet.
absolutely, and I think here's the thing to consider. I just the two schools that I think are going to fall off a cliff in basically every revenue sport,
Interesting.
Auburn and Alabama.
Really? Why them?
They they have donors, they have money, but not a ton of money.
Hmm.
When you compare it to schools like Texas and SMU.
Like
SMU
where the endowments are just huge.
The Alabama money is not Texas oil money.
Texas oil money. Yeah.
A&M, Texas, SMU, those schools are gonna like this is the heyday for those universities. And when you add in, like the Vanderbilt and other schools like that, where Alabama, we've already seen it. Like with Saban retiring, Alabama football is going to go back to being irrelevant. Like we have seen their offseason, the recruiting and the transfers. We've seen that, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a pretty sight on the field this fall. So we'll see how that goes long term. But just my thought and prediction moving forward, like 3-4 years down the line, those universities are not going to be able to compete and keep up with these other programs and areas that have way more money.
We're about to, in like, what does that look like? I wonder in like, say, the Big Ten, because some of the schools in Big Ten have way more money than you think.
Yeah,
and others, or just have a large base to draw from. Like your Ohio States and Michigans aren't going to really have an issue on it, I think. But I really think you could see other schools just like pay their way to be good. And you bring up a really fascinating point there. If we get to the place where they're getting paid right out of the the budget of the school, you're about to find out how rich some of these schools really are.
Yeah, well, it's also what I'm saying though is that it's like if all being equal and like Texas and Alabama will pay me the same amount of money, like being football specific, it's like, well, Saban's not at Alabama anymore. And I'm not going to I don't want to live in Alabama. Like, I'm not going to go to Tuscaloosa. I can go to Austin. Of course I'll go to Austin. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
taking pop shots at Alabama.
Like what I'm just saying that like,
no, I get your point.
That like all being equal, it's essentially like looking at it like NFL free agency or like location matters.
It does.
Like, where it didn't matter quite as much anymore, but like where it used to, location is going to come into a factor here. Because when all being equal, when these other schools are going to basically be able to pay them the same amount of money, you can pick and choose. Do I want to live in Nashville? Do I want to live in Miami? Do I want like it's
we're about to see the U come back.
It already is like dudes from the South tend to stay in the South because they don't want to deal with the winters up here. Like that's just how that goes.
Yeah. Wow, man, you really kind of opened my eyes on that one. I thought to myself, I guess that's a whole other factor of this, and I think there's other programs that we didn't mention that are also going to potentially fall off a cliff, and it's gonna be one of those situations where 5 years from now we're looking around and we're like, well, of course it went that way. It was only going to go that way, and some of that I don't think is as obvious now. I think that we won't see the real effects of this until we're a good 2 to 3 years in it. That's why I said end of the decade. Because if this goes seeing how this goes in the back half of the 2020s is really what like college athletics is going to really turn into. And whatever it looks like by 2030, the landscape and what other realignment has happened as a result of whatever, or if things have gone a little bit more regionally or back to normal, or if we still just have a Power Four or it's just a Super League or whatever. Like the ideal situation, we're not going to rehash this, but the ideal situation would be football only conferences, but that's not really going to happen. So I don't know. These are all fascinating figures, and you really gave me another piece to think about there.
So I like for example,
yes,
I just something to think about. Look at these big power conferences, the universities that have the endowments in the bottom of those conferences are going to have to look for alternative options. Like if you just the SEC, for example,
you could put some names out there.
Mississippi, Ole Miss and Mississippi State have the two lowest endowments in the conference.
Makes sense.
And then South Carolina, Alabama, LSU, and Auburn. Like so something to think about. I mean,
also like I don't want to harp too much on this, but some of that, obviously, these being some state schools, a lot of that has to do with the economic situations in those states as well, right? and the
Yeah.
regular. I
Yeah.
mean, everything's connected, of course. But that's immediately what came to mind when
I
I.
I just for comparison, the largest endowment in the SEC right now, what would you guess?
The SEC as it is currently, or how it's
Yes.
going to be this coming
How
fall?
it is currently today.
How it's current? Okay, let me think about this for just a second.
There's two schools over $10 billion.
10. Wow. Okay. Is one of them Georgia?
No.
Okay. I just kind of thought maybe
We
proximity.
I've said both of them already in the last 5 minutes. Um Third place is 2.6 billion.
Okay.
I don't think you'd ever guess it. It's Arkansas. If
Oh
you
yeah, that
subtract these two, Arkansas has a ton of money.
that makes sense.
Um I think it's because of the Walmarts. I think it's because of the Walton
Yeah.
family.
Waltons.
But it's A&M and Vanderbilt.
Dandy's got
And
yeah.
so A&M is at 13.6 billion and Vandy's at 10.9. And then when you add in Oklahoma and Texas, Oklahoma would slot in ahead of Arkansas,
Interesting.
and Texas has 30 billion. So this is what we're talking about, is that like just writing on the wall, Texas is in position to be the best, like to have the best sports in college athletics for the next decade.
Yeah. I
It
mean, if they
I'm just saying, it seems like Texas football is in a position to be back. They have the money to spend. So with the way this is going, like there's no excuse for Texas to not win every single championship.
So what you're saying, Casen, is that if you went to a school in a power conference, you might want to go check the amount of money that your schools have on hand, because that is exactly
Yeah,
what I'm going to do on the other side of the show
that's what I'm saying. Of like
for each
if
one.
if you're Ole Miss or Mississippi State, you might want to be calling up the Sun Belt.
Well, I mean, but like, will it look like that then? I mean, is this going to turn into like the Premier League, like where it's the same,
Yeah, yeah.
where it's 6 teams at the top that have a realistic chance, and then no one else, and that's just it. I
It
mean,
that's pretty much what it's going to
are
be.
you going to completely erase parity in college athletics if this happens?
It's
I mean,
already gone,
yeah, I
Kellan.
mean,
Like it's already gone.
that's true. I mean,
Like it's gone.
it's not gone in tournament form, but it's been gone. I mean, like I've been one of these people that says parity is not really a thing in sports in general. It is at different areas, uh, but again, it's just one of those things where you might as well absolutely draw a line in the sand. It's like it's absolutely gone now.
I
Uh,
mean, with the weight of the 12-team playoff, Penn State has a good chance of making it almost every year. They're never going to win anything. Like that's just a fact. Like Penn State could get into the 12-team playoff every year and win a championship 0 out of every single time. They are never winning anything.
That's actually a good point. I'm not necessarily. I don't want to get into the fight about Penn State, but just with the friends of the listeners that are like listen to our show, but I do think that the 12-team playoff is going to be the same, like 5 to 6 to 7 teams every single year with just a few slots different. I do definitely think that, just because realistically, I mean, we know who the top 5 to 6 football programs are. They're going to make it probably most every year. You'll see them in different orders, and things have gone up and down. We've seen the 4-team playoff change a little bit over the last like 2 to 3, but for the most part, it was like the same 4 to 5 teams those entire 10 years. So, yeah, I think, and the teams that were, and when they did the whole list, I remember they showed of all the, like the about 12 or so schools total that 10 or 12 that competed in the 14 playoff over the 10 years. You knew that the ones, like most of them where they had one appearance, was a year where they got absolutely blasted, and you remember it. Like Washington made it twice, obviously, but first time Washington made it in there, got destroyed. Michigan State was in there, got destroyed. Cincinnati. I mean, you remember those years.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Yeah. Like it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. They had no chance.
Yeah.
So wow, man, we said a lot. I've gotten kind of everything out of my system regarding this goes. We'll see how it goes. But landmark day. I mean, I don't know about you, but like obviously this happened on Thursday. This news broke. I mean, this was on the news. Like this led like cable news and like the nightly news channels. Like I was like, yeah, this feels like when we pinpoint good or bad changes, because there's always pros and cons, right? this is like the moment I'll remember like a decade from now of that happened. And it was like, oh man.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Ready to move on?
Yeah. Yeah. We can move on.
We don't have to take too much time to talk about this. I slid this into our lineup just because I just wondered if you had any more thoughts. Last week we talked about the Scheffler incident, and this past week actual footage emerged from like across the street, like a street light cam of the kind of entire incident. And I just wanted to know if you had any follow-up thoughts about it. I do have a few, but
So I mean, my overall thoughts are kind of more of like for anybody that didn't see the video, like you can see, so it's a little obscured by like a bus, but you can see sort of what happened where the police are out there directing traffic because of the accident that occurred earlier in the morning, and so he just kind of goes to turn left to get into the driveway, but then as soon as he turns left, the cop then just starts running up to him,
mm-hmm.
and then just like throws himself on top of the car, and then you just see him like talking to him through the window for a while, and at one point it looks like he reaches through the car to like grab the keys out of the ignition, and then there's some back and forth, and the next thing you know they pull him out of the car, cuff him, and then drag him away. So the overall theme is that what we saw in the video did not match anything of what they said in the written report,
Right.
in the statement. Obviously the infamous line was about ruining his pants valued at $80. There was nothing in that footage that even showed what could have happened to his pants.
It has since come out that the police officer in question is being disciplined over this for not having the body cam
Yeah.
on. And he also, I didn't realize this till today when I was kind of doing research for the show. He has a history of violations going back a decade. So it looked like an escalation of the situation by the officer, as we kind of figured it was. Should Scheffler have like gone when he went? No, but I don't think in any way when you watch that video he was even expecting the reaction to the police officer that he got. Like, oh, they'll let me go, they'll realize who I am, and I can just kind of ease on up. And then when that happened and he ran over that, like it looked like an escalation. So it makes me wonder if it would have been fine had Scheffler not like thought he was fine and went. So communication's important, folks. Communication's important, and quite frankly, be careful out there.
Well, you can see it in the video too. Like what Scheffler said, that he didn't even know the guy was a cop. He thought that they were just like traffic. Like
Yeah,
like
you can, and they're
he thought
wearing
they were.
reflectors. You
Yeah,
can't really tell.
you
Yeah,
can't even see a uniform. They were just wearing like a yellow vest.
the reflective vests. Yeah,
Yeah, and so he probably just thought they were people that worked for the Valhalla directing traffic and didn't even think anything about it. And then
yeah, because you see if you
yeah,
see even in the middle of the dark, you see a police officer, in a situation like that, especially with the accident that happened, you would stop immediately. But even then, I was like, hey, he doesn't look like, it's covering like the whole uniform. I mean, so yeah. So anyway, I'm just kind of glad that we did get like a follow up of the footage of it. Uh, I hope it
yeah. I
helps.
mean,
I hope it
we'll
helps
see.
smooth everything out.
We'll see how this goes. I mean, from my understanding, from what I've heard from legal uh experts, so even after this footage came out, like the prosecutor is like still pushing for charges and is still trying to do this. And from my understanding of what people are theorizing, is that the prosecutor is still going to try and take this to trial and to bring charges in hopes that they can negotiate a deal to where Scheffler agrees to not sue the city. Because like obviously if this goes to trial, they'll lose in pretty significant fashion, but the threat of continuing to press charges is what they're hoping will get them to just agree to not sue them.
Got it. So it's sort of like we stand to potentially lose more money if he outright sues us.
Yes, I mean, because
That's what makes sense.
There is a case to be made
Absolutely.
that he can sue them for the
Yes.
first place winnings of the tournament.
Yeah.
Because he's like, hey, you guys threw me in prison, and then I like bombed out the next day, and I didn't win this tournament. Like, what are we doing? So we'll see. I don't know. I think all in all, it's something that comes into light. Obviously, we don't need to go too far into details with it, but
No.
this is not the first time we've heard of the Louisville Police Department.
Right.
And so this is another situation that something's fishy going on over
Yeah.
there,
And we got to deal with it.
and like the circumstances of who this person was is the only reason we've even heard of this story.
That's true.
Like how many other people have happen with to deal with this from this police department
Very good
every
point,
day.
Casen. Very good point.
This is not the first time, and so something from the state needs to go in and like figure out how to fix this department.
Right. Hey,
So
it's truer spoken words, man. And so we'll definitely keep an eye on this. I think there's not gonna be any more escalating. I think we'll just kind of see how it plays out in the legal system now and what the result is. But wow, yeah, you got incredibly astute points made on that part. Getting to back to more, honestly, more lighter conversations, I hope. You've been taking in any of the Western or Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA, Casen? I have.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and I'll tell you what, Luka's looking really good. Now I will say, like, in terms of long-term prediction, because by the time this episode comes out, game 3 is on Sunday night of this game of the Timberwolves and the Mavericks. Dallas Mavericks. I will say this. The where am I going with this? The Dallas Mavericks lead it 2-0. We're able to steal 2 games in Minnesota. Now, it has been noted that the Timberwolves have been incredible on the road this entire postseason, and they're about to be on the road again. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, overall, both of these series have been super close for the most part. Game one,
Boston leads Indiana 3-0. I will say that.
Yeah. Was that
Sorry, I
3-0
interrupted
already?
you.
Oh, I didn't realize that was game 3 last night.
Game 3.
Yeah, the only game that was really like kind of runaway was game 2 when the Celtics beat the Pacers by 16, but they've been relatively close the whole time.
Absolutely.
Like it came down to the last possession. Like we saw what was it, Thursday night? The I'm trying to remember how that game ended. The final possession, yeah, it was the final possession between the Wolves and the Mavs. That one was really crazy. And then last night, with the Celtics,
came down to Boston essentially winning by 3.
Yeah, that one was crazy. I mean, I thought the Pacers kind of got robbed there at the end, and that was even without Halliburton as well. So I think they definitely could have won that game with Halliburton.
I'll say this, and this just kind of comes to mind because this will be on Memorial Day. Game 4 will happen. If the Celtics sweep the Pacers, it's weirdly one of those situations where like the sweep doesn't really tell the story of the whole series. Like it's been closer than it's, but I guess it's like, well, if you get swept, you get swept.
Yeah, it's like the Lakers fans that were like that when they got swept by the Nuggets. They were like, "Oh, but we were really close. We were in there."
It's like, yeah, but you got swept. You were close, but you didn't take one of the games out of the best of 7 opportunities you have. So it's like, so what do you say there? I mean, I sound like those Laker fans. It's like, yeah, but it was close, but we lost.
I can't even say anything though, because that that was me in the entire city of Cleveland in like 2017 when we were like super close almost every game, but we like in 2017 and 2018 it was just kind of like we were super close, and then
well, I will say this. It was pointed out by a friend of the show, Matt, that out of the 4 of these teams, it's definitely like punching a record. It's going to be historic for one of these young squads, right? And it's a good finals. I mean, the Celtics have been there before, but this core Celtics team, they haven't won it since 2008.
Yeah.
So it's going to be cool. I will say I'm still polling for the Timberwolves because I want my prediction on our last episode to be right.
Yeah, I mean, what like Tatum would have been in middle school the last time the Celtics won a title.
Oh yeah,
like
when Garnett was screaming anything is possible. So I will say also, Too Tall animation is incredible. I want the every time the Wolves have won, they've done some sort of like wolf pack like stampeding everywhere. I want to
Yeah.
see that because they escalated every series. I want to see that continue. Um, where it's just Ant-Man and Karl Anthony Towns just riding wolves all the way to the championship.
Mhm.
We'll see. I mean, ultimately, what do you think happens here? Because this is our last show. Like these will be done by the time we're back on
Yeah,
here.
yeah. We probably won't be back until after the whole finals is over. So,
Potentially, yeah. Or at least
um,
that's it'll be like about to end, we think.
yeah,
So
I think I think at this point it's become a little clear that maybe the lights are just a little too bright for Ant-Man and the squad this year.
mm,
I hope they can get back. I hope that they can, learn from it and get back next year, but it definitely feels like you've got a team like the Mavs with Kyrie, who has a ring and knows
yep.
how to get there, and Luka, who's, you know, developed and has been around for a while, that he knows,
He's
how
been
to
in the
kind of get.
league longer.
He's been in the league longer.
Yeah.
He's bombed out before, and so he knows.
Also, the Timberwolves dispatched like one of the massive roadblocks in the
Yeah.
last series, you know.
Yeah, I mean, well, and like I said, they were sort of built. I talked about it before. They were built as the Nugget Slayers. Like
Yep.
that's what they were. And so they're not so much designed to beat a team like the Mavs with two massively incredible ball handling guards that can just throw people off their ankles. I don't know what the heck happened, but it was Thursday night when they lost game. It was game two.
Yeah.
That
Lost by one.
they ended up switching Gobert onto Luka, and I'm like, and then Luka just shoots a dagger in his face. I'm like, yeah, of course. Like Gobert's a defensive player of the year, but he's not defending Luka. Like
No,
he's getting his ankle shredded. Like
that ended up being the
so,
difference.
so that's just
Yeah.
how it is. Is that the Timberwolves with Gobert and Cat are just designed as a bigger team with the front court being the focus to stop the Jokic, and they're not quite so great at defending the arc, and that I think is what's going to end up getting it. So I will end up going with
I tend to
Celtics,
agree.
Mavs, and honestly, I
In that series, I picked the Mavs.
I do too.
The
I
West,
do
the
too.
West. I mean, just the gauntlet that they've had to go through, and just that whole side of the bracket's just better.
I
Like,
mean, I any day of the week, I trust Luka over Tatum any day of the week, and I just think this is a very interesting matchup.
especially if they sweep and/or gentlemen sweep buzzsaw the Timberwolves here. I I mean, they could do that to the Celtics in the finals. Like, I'll be sitting to myself, I don't think this is going to go 7 games. This will go 6 at
Mhm.
the most. But Mavs win.
I
Yeah.
Now we talked about it with a different city as well. The Stars.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
so
Great transition.
so so we talked about it with New York with the Knicks and the Rangers. Now we're looking at Dallas.
Yeah, that whole time Dallas has been sitting over here. Have you guys seen what we have? I do now, and it needs to be. Yeah. I do want to point something out. You said it was a legacy game for Connor McDavid to beat the Vancouver Canucks, and they did. They also then went right into game one and won against Dallas, which was impressive. And then Dallas has been like, no, let's even it back up. Both the Eastern and Western Conference Finals for the Stanley Cup are tied at 1 right now, and they both look pretty even up. Like, I think these two series could go 7 games.
As we're speaking right now, there's about 5 minutes left in the first.
Yep,
Rangers
what's
are up
going on now?
2-1 on the Panthers.
All right.
So yeah, that's definitely another even um tough series.
What was interesting was I heard a brief interview this past week on actually the McAfee show with Kachuk saying that they have like such a squad down there brewing with Florida. They have a great young team. But what's interesting is he says that he's been going to the beach every single day they're not playing. And what's crazy is he'll go to the beach down there and he says there's just Florida Panthers gear everywhere, like the flags, the tents, like people recognize him. And it's like, hey, it's, just casually going, asking about the game and stuff like that. but he said that has kept him level. And I'm thinking to myself, that's just a different world and different idea when you think of
I
hockey in
feel
Florida.
so bad. Like,
Like
could you imagine going to the beach in
in the
in
middle of the Stanley Cup
Miami?
playoffs.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
in
just saying
Sunrise. They're
going
in
to the.
Sunrise,
I'm
Florida.
just saying going to
Yeah.
the beach in South Florida, and all you see is that disgusting, horrific Panthers logo everywhere, just ruining your vacation. Gross. That's
I
so bad.
I will say I am one of those people that liked the old Panthers logo more than the current one.
It
Just
was
saying.
better.
The
I
Leaping
mean,
Panther.
I just think the brand is just so awful. Like like Florida has like the Jags are bad, the Panthers are like figure something better out. Like that's gross.
Well, even the best like my favorite like logos, my favorite uniforms like in the state of Florida are probably Miami Dolphins throwbacks with
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
jumping dolphin. I'm like, can you guys just go back to that and get rid of your aquarium logo? Anyway, I don't know. But that being said, if I'm leaning our direction right now, I'm still leaning Dallas and New York for the Stanley Cup final. I think ultimately those are the two
Yeah.
teams that are going to dig it out. I think those are the two deepest teams, and I think that finals would be amazing. I really want to see
I
that.
well, I because of what because of what we just said, very interesting. Dallas, New York, and then Dallas, Boston.
Yeah,
Like very interesting comparisons there between the two sports.
I'm assuming that the Dallas Stars and Mavericks play in the same building.
I think so. Yeah,
I
yeah,
legitimately have no clue. I guess we could easily figure that out.
yeah.
But I'm assuming that that's the case. Uh,
Yeah. They do.
okay, okay. So so there you go. So yeah, you could have a double parade thing here in Dallas.
Yeah.
So
Well, I believe it'd be the opposite. So I think Boston would have home court in the NBA, but
yes,
and then New York.
Dallas would have home ice.
Would
Yeah.
they? I feel like New York would.
What's up?
I feel like New York would, wouldn't they?
Mm, so whoever the highest seed was, I think Dallas was the higher seed in the playoffs. Pretty sure. Then New York was on their side of the bracket. To be completely honest, at least
Oh, okay.
the way I see it seeded, that's what would happen.
Oh, okay, okay.
But then again, I don't know. Then again, they are the President's Trophy winners, so I don't know if it goes by
Well,
record.
I guess they're both ones, but
Yeah.
that's my point though. They're both ones, and then the Rangers won the President's Trophy, so that's what I'm saying. Is
So
that
maybe it is by record. So it
I
would
think
be
it
New
would be
York who has the
so
home ice.
that's tricky then because then they both would be heading back at the same time.
Could be. Yeah.
So that's going to be tricky, I think.
Yeah. The
But
NHL, the NHL and NBA are gonna have to
I
work out the schedule there.
pray for the arena staff at the American Airlines Center in
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
The changeover crew
Yes.
working overtime.
They are working overtime, and they're over saying, okay, one of these two teams has got to lose. Oh man, that's crazy though. But for a city who like for a city that like gets made fun of every fall because of the Cowboys, it is pretty cool to see the other couple teams in
Well,
Dallas.
that's the meme and the joke about it is that the only team that doesn't win is the Cowboys. like every other team has been to a championship more recently.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. So anyway, yep, shout out Dallas. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. Is it time for of the weeks, Casen?
Sure.
So I've got a decent number that I think are going to take us to some interesting conversations. So, start us off, my friend.
All right. I guess I will go to valiant effort of the week, and that goes to we talked about him before the Bowling Green baseball team. They unfortunately lost in the MAC tournament. But they did win the regular season, but they lost in the MAC tournament, so they are done. But they suffered some injuries down the stretch of the season, and that I think sort of limited how good they could be compared to how they were a month or two ago. So
Yes, and I actually wanted to pull this up real quick because the first of all goes without saying it's the greatest. It is like the greatest season like in the history of the program or something like that.
Yeah.
One of them, and they cleaned up in the MAC awards, including Kyle Halleck got Coach of the Year, which
Mhm.
absolutely deserved. So it's pretty cool. He got Player of the Year at Bowling Green and now Coach of the Year. So I believe at BG.
At
So
Kent State.
it was a Kent State. Kent State. So one of the, I mean, that's awesome.
But I think he is the first person to win both. I think that was the
So
thing
that
was
was a
that
stat. Okay.
was that he
I knew
won.
some of that was
He
wrong.
was the first. He's the first coach to win Coach of the Year and Player of the Year.
So I second
So,
Casen's yes, hats off. I'll give them my hats off of the week.
mhm.
I wanted to pull this up. Staying in baseball, in college baseball for that matter, which this is tournament week, all that's going on. This was a story that I did. Hang on, I'm trying to find it. This was a story that was mm, man, I'm trying to find it here. It's letting me. What is the it was the story about the baseball team that is representing a college that's going out of business.
Oh yes, yes.
I'm trying to find it. I thought I pulled it up because I didn't want to bring it up without
Yeah, so it is Birmingham Southern.
there we go.
It is so
I apologize. I wasn't ready for that. There it is.
no, yeah, you're
So
fine.
my absolute dogs of the week go to this college baseball team where they're going to the Division 3, the Division 3 College World Series, and it's been a known thing that their college or institution is closing essentially, and they've known it for a while. But if you know about college baseball, obviously the school year's been over for like a good 3 weeks for the majority of students, so they've been competing in the postseason and they're playing for the love of the game. They're playing for they're not really representing they're representing a school that did exist, and they're just competing, and it's like the last remnants of this school, which is kind of amazing. So
Yeah, and like that's what's crazy. So the university, I believe, is closing effective May 31st, and then the Division 3 World Series begins June 1st. And so they are going to I believe what they said was that they are gonna have to basically pay their own way there and back um or something like that
yeah,
because
because they're not
the
school
school
doesn't
doesn't exist.
exist anymore. Yeah,
So, but they're gonna compete for each other.
there's got to be a little bit of that for those guys that feels like travel ball, right?
Yeah,
It's like playing for the love of the game. You playing for you playing for the school. You play for your guys around you. At this point. So I just wanted to show them some love on our cast because it's been one of the better stories of the last like month really. You can go next.
definitely. um, oh, okay. So, my, I guess, why'd you have to spoil that of the week? Goes to Ryan Reynolds. So I don't know. I don't really want to. I guess maybe I'm spoiling
I
it for
think
you
I
if
know
you
what you're
yeah,
talking about.
but in this week's Welcome to Wrexham episode, they basically just spoiled that Rob McElhenney is going to have a cameo appearance in the Deadpool movie because they showed
I
him
did see
going
that.
to set and being in it. They didn't really say what exactly it is. It's clear that he's some sort of TVA guard, but we don't really know which one or like when he'll appear. But that's it. A lot of people were just kind of upset that like, well, I would have loved to just see him and
Yeah,
not
that
know
would have
he
been
was in the movie.
yeah, it
Like
would have been awesome.
I don't really understand the point of that of like just telling everybody, hey, he's going to be in the movie. Like what I would have loved to just see it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I actually did see that as well, and it's like, well, I didn't get upset about it. I was like, well, that still sounds like it'd be great because in just the incredibly creative mind of that dude Ryan Reynolds, I'm like, you could tell me something's gonna happen, and I still think it's gonna be amazing when I see it in the movie because of just how ridiculous like they are when putting that stuff together. I will also say though, for a movie like this, that's been rumored, I think there's gonna be way more cameos, like big ones that we know nothing about. Um, you know,
Yeah.
the big one that's been teased is Taylor Swift as Dazzler. That would be incredible. But honestly, there's going to be others of stuff we don't even see coming, like from the X-Men universe and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like this is the first this feels like, you know, it could be sort of like the first one since Endgame of like, here's a project that like everybody in Hollywood wants to be a part of, because it's
No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home is the like it's an Endgame Spider-Man No Way Home level of hype. I think there's
right.
In most anticipated Marvel films like since Endgame.
Yeah.
I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I saw someone put that on Twitter and I was like, yeah, that's a good comparison. Like everyone's going to go see that like the second they can, and it's going to be memed. Everyone's going to go see it multiple times. Like, yeah.
yeah, definitely. So we'll we'll have to see we'll have to see, I guess, whenever it comes out.
I have no doubt it'll still be funny.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I am curious to see if he actually has any lines. Like, he could just be in the background. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he just
gets taken out by Deadpool in like a hilarious way. I mean, I can see that. I just hope it's clearly him, right? I just hope it's clearly Rob McElhenney. I also hope that there's like a Wrexham reference in the film. That would be incredible.
Well, I saw somebody say when it was just sort of announced, people on Twitter were like, I hope he's just in the movie as Mac.
That would be great if you're not familiar from Always Sunny. That would be great. Shifting to a different topic, get a little less lighthearted now. My travesty of the week goes to TNT and Turner Broadcasting for essentially putting the future of Inside of the NBA in doubt. The show we all literally love clips from, if you watch it or don't watch it, of Ernie Johnson, Kenny the Jet Smith, obviously Charles Barkley, and Shaquille O'Neal as your core four. Those guys are incredible, and always, if you listen to any segment, you're gonna hear several things: something funny, some sort of hilarious back and forth between Shaq and Chuck, something really insightful about basketball that really makes you think like, oh, I understand a little bit more now, and potentially Shaq fall over and knock something over. Like some sort of prop or stunt or something like that. If you're not familiar, the NBA is negotiating its like future media rights right now, and I double checked because as of right now, there still is no official deal. Adam Silver has said that like it's still kind of being discussed, but because the idea being that if it leaves TNT, the NBA on TNT, the inside the NBA wouldn't happen anymore. Now, do have a little bit of some good news from May 23rd, a few days ago, on the Dan Patrick Show, when Charles Barkley outright said that they're already like discussing the possibility of hiring a crew to his production company and continuing the show and just doing it via streaming or doing on Amazon or something like that. Like someone will pick it up if they do that, and I hope they do.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but I just don't think it won't mean the same thing if it's not like before or after
a game.
The game. Like,
yeah,
like I don't think people are gonna like. I'm sure there will be some people, but like if you watch a game and then have to flip over to Netflix, like that's I don't think people are gonna be doing that.
Some will.
I think
enough would.
Yeah, maybe. I think what I'm curious would be, maybe they could switch it to, I don't know, college basketball. I mean, the tournaments on TNT. I don't know.
Those four guys are a part of the tournament anyway.
Right.
And that, in theory, that'll continue, right? You would hope.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But I don't think they would contract that talent for just doing the NCAA tournament when they're doing the NBA at the same time. So,
but so here's the thing that I think is what makes what's making everybody super mad, is that basically what it sounds like is the NBA or the NBC is pushing very hard to get the NBA back.
Yeah.
And it seems like TNT is basically just giving up and not really fighting to keep it.
Mm.
But with doing that, they also just spent who knows how much money to get the rights to a college football playoff game.
Yes.
And so a lot of people are like super mad because they're like, what are you even doing? Like you have an audience, you have this product that everybody loves, and you're just letting it go to buy this other product that you literally don't have people for.
Mm.
Like who is going to broadcast a game on TNT?
You'd have to hire them.
Like that's my point.
Yeah.
It's like you have people for a product and you're just letting that walk to get a different product that you don't even have yet.
And like I will say that it's a good move for NBC because NBC obviously lost the NHL, and it reverted back to ESPN and everything. Since that happened, I always thought to myself, NBC is playing the long game for one of these leagues, and the NBA makes sense actually. That being said, if it's at the expense of inside the NBA, like that's a bummer. And I also point out one other thing. I don't think TNT anticipated the backlash that they got this week. When that news came out, that was like an avalanche of people like, wait, seriously, you guys are really going to make it so that NBA, like inside the NBA is no longer a thing if this happens? Like, I really don't think they anticipated like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
yeah, these guys are loved. Like, what do you mean?
For context as to why like it's just not going to continue, it's because everybody, I think Chuck's deal is up, but everybody else, including Ernie, is like under contract with TNT for a long time. And so they would have to basically, which I don't get how that works if they just cancel the show. I don't really get how they're still under contract if like the show that they're on doesn't exist anymore.
I mean, in theory, you'd pay out the contract and that's it.
Like that's what I'm saying. It's like I don't understand how they could still be held under contract if like that's not a thing. But so maybe they're just going to hold them and only put them on TV in March. I have no idea. But crazy.
That is crazy.
But yeah. So that's the theory as to why like that would go. It also even if it could just move to NBC, it wouldn't be the same thing because half of what they say they can't say on NBC. like there's certain liberties that they just don't care about on cable as when they do a network
versus public access.
Like you can't be talking about the women of Galveston, Texas on NBC night in and night out.
It's a perfect show for TikTok too, because every amazing clip from these guys always immediately makes it over there. And I'm like, what crazy thing did Chuck say now? Like,
I don't know. There's this guy on TikTok that does, that does like pretend this day in history inside the NBA for like events. Like that obviously the show was not around when these events happened, but there was one from like the Kennedy assassination, and they talked about different things and he
just like acts it out,
and he acts it out. But yeah.
I mean, like that is such a creative idea, but like that's like the cultural significance of that show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how iconic, quite frankly, those four guys have been. And let's be real, those four dudes are beloved. Like they're great people. Like and it's just, and they have great chemistry, and it's just like you can tell they're all genuinely friends. And
for anybody that doesn't know, like this show is baked into 2K, and it's been baked into 2K for years.
Yeah.
Like you cut to halftime, the four of them are there at the desk at halftime of your game talking about how trash you were in the first half.
Yeah, and it's funny, they actually do like comment on it as they would comment on a regular game. I mean, they have a large scene in terms of the NBA's flat out TV identity. And so
100%.
If I were Silver, I'd be like, how can we somehow keep these guys like a part of this? Because like a lot of people tune in to certain games specifically for them. So
if you could I don't know if you could like maybe put that like buy out their contracts from Turner and like put them on League Pass or something, or like make them like the NBA. Like part of whatever the official
NBA network, maybe. I don't. Yeah,
I have no idea.
I don't know.
But here's the thing, though. I know Adam Silver is a great commissioner.
He is.
Because he knows what fans want. And so I think if there's a path forward, they'll find it. And it's just, this is an unfortunate situation with the current status of TNT as a network and
TNT and the business in general. Let's be real. Like, as deals try to restructure in terms of things are shifting away from cable, obviously, and shifting to more of a streaming service, and it's really more TV pay for view, basically, not pay per view, but I mean, like, we are getting to the portion where to get certain things, you're always going to have to be subscribed in some way, and the business model's changing. And stuff like this is just a byproduct of what can happen in contracts.
For something else that needs to be just addressed,
sure,
we've talked about this before. TNT is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yes.
And David Zaslav is one of the worst people in media on the planet Earth. He does nothing but shutter divisions, shutter what people like, and ruin existing products that he doesn't need to touch.
He's taken over there, and he's slashed a lot of stuff that was being made. The Batgirl movie got shelved, like a lot of things. HBO switched to Max.
Yeah,
and it switched,
along with just wasting money that you don't even need to spend.
Like a lot of stuff has. You're right. That is the reputation. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm going to be positive though, and think that this isn't done. This isn't done for. They're going to find some sort of way forward. What's nice is all four of the guys are on board with it. So, hopefully we can see inside the NBA continue some way, somehow. You got another of the week?
No, I do not. You can go.
I got two more. They're both positive. The one really brief one is I had a reunion of the week. Oh, wait. Okay. I do have one more sad one. It's official rest in peace to the Pac-12 as their baseball tournament came to an end. Shout out Arizona. They won it. But I sent you a TikTok of that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the last like event seemingly of the old Pac-12. So that being said, I still think something's going on there. Like the Pacific market didn't just fall off the face of the earth. Okay. I'm not convinced we won't see some sort of conference like that, whether it's this or something else like that. But that was the last negative one I had. I wanted to pull this up because there was a reunion of the week that was cool to see. And it was, I think, either just last night or the night before. My reunion of the week goes to Caitlin Clark and Kate Martin, who were teammates at Iowa, who played each other in the WNBA for the very first time. And photos of them before the game hugging, and Kate Martin literally lifting Caitlin off the floor was we're kind of going around social media last night, and I'm like, that's awesome to see. And I think the cool thing was Kate Martin was the player that they didn't know she was really going to get drafted, and she got drafted by the Aces. Her nickname was the Glue. So they were quoted after the game as saying it was very weird playing against each other. And I was like, I bet it was. That's when you consider how long they played together at Iowa. So, and my last, that's my one. This last little bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. This was news actually back in April the 27th, but I saw more news about it today, and I was like, oh, I forgot to do that. I would have done it of the week, but it was when we kind of had that lull and we were sick. Pittsburgh officially, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds SC organization is essentially, through that organization, is putting forth a project in which Pittsburgh is going to join the USL W League in 2025. A official pro women's soccer team is coming to Pittsburgh and seemingly going to compete at Highmark Stadium, just like the Riverhounds do. So I don't know what they're going to be called, but it is going to be through the Riverhounds organization. If you don't know, they run a pretty significant academy there in that area as well, which Christian Pulisic's dad has been a big part of, because he I don't know if he's still there, but he did coach for the Riverhounds. Pittsburgh scene in soccer is just getting better and better. So I just wanted to give them a shout out, and it's not necessarily of the week, but that was definitely my expansion of the week, I guess you can call it. Goes to the USL W and W League and the Pittsburgh Riverhounds SC, who are currently celebrating their 25th season of existence. So, shout out to Riverhounds. That's all I got, man.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool. Oh, okay. I do have one more. I'll go real
Okay.
quick. I've got just so I can touch on it. A firing of the week, and that goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers firing JB Bickerstaff.
Yeah.
The Cavs kind of unceremoniously got trounced by Boston, and there was a lot of up in the air over whether or not JB's job was safe, and it I think was clear after the season ended that he and Donovan Mitchell just weren't getting along, and so they thought maybe it'd be best to move on, and so
he was fired. He didn't like walk away.
He was fired. Yeah.
Okay.
I would love. I mean, I know a lot of people probably won't agree with me on this, but I would think that it's probably time to move off Kobe Altman, our GM, as well, because he is just not good at some of these personnel decisions with the coaching staff. I mean, he hired John Beilein from Michigan, and that went so bad.
Yeah, that was I remember that one.
Yeah. So I mean, he's not bad. It's just it's stale, and it's getting
you need a front office there to strengthen the young core you got there.
Yeah,
the Cavs are good. So I mean,
and what it seems like, and sort of what I think. I don't think they're going to do it because they would have done it if they were going to fire him when they fired JB. They would have done it by now. But in sort of the statement, it sort of was indicated that the owner, Dan Gilbert, is going to be starting to get more of a bit of a more hands-on approach. I think maybe he I think he probably took a step back when he had the health issues a while ago, and so he wasn't quite as involved as he had been in the past. And so I think now he's like, okay, well, I can, so I'm gonna actually get back into managing this. So we'll see. I don't know. There was a lot of talk because LeBron showed up to one of the playoff games, and so there's a lot of speculation around that situation because LeBron is a free agent. And like the last time he did that was before he came.
We're getting Bronny James and LeBron's coming back to Cleveland, baby.
I mean, that
Let's do it.
Yeah. So it's just we'll see how this goes. It's a very interesting offseason for the Cavs. We'll see what happens with it.
What would be your thoughts if that happened?
I don't know exactly how I'd feel because I don't know if he would actually like make the team better.
Yeah, like does LeBron help? Does LeBron help at this point?
Like I mean, he might, because that's kind of the position that we don't really have. Like if all being the same, there's a couple tweaks we could do with like the front court, but then if he just comes in, he would fill a gap at the three that we don't really have, as long as he's willing to like defer to Donovan Mitchell as like number one at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, you were tiptoeing around, you said all the right things, and then I was just like, I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. What if that happens?
It would be crazy if it does.
Oh man, what a saga with that franchise. Man.
So there was a the screenshot of the footage that they showed him at the game. He was with Savannah, and somebody was saying the jokes. I don't know if you saw the footage of like I saw the footage of the video of a couple months ago when LeBron was with Jeannie and some other woman on the sideline.
Yeah.
And so people were saying Savannah's like, all right, we got to get back to Cleveland. Get out of
Yeah, we
here.
get back to Cleveland. Yeah. I remember like it was like around National Women's Day too. And LeBron said that to them, and you could tell
Yeah.
like that was a good clip. But nevertheless, I was looking this up too because Dan Gilbert, I mean, man, he's on the Cavs a long time. I was even looking up, I was looking up his age, 62 years old. So definitely, plenty like at 62 years old, and he clearly likes being like the sports owner. Definitely in a situation where it's like, hey, we're pretty good again. Maybe like step in and let's see if we can't build this into a contender again,
Yeah, and so that was part of the thing, was that some people are saying that the verbiage of him stepping in is him getting involved to bring LeBron back, because I don't know the specifics of it, but I think he had to basically grovel at his feet the last time because of the press release he issued when he left.
Right. Now it's like, if you're really going anywhere, all it takes is us drafting Bronny. And it's
Yeah.
like one of those things where it's like, first of all, it doesn't sound like there's really as much bad blood anymore, especially after everything that happened.
No,
Back,
no.
it's water under the bridge. He won a championship there. But it is funny to think that, like, if you're Dan Gilbert, like, if there's even a chance that this could happen, like,
which like that's the thing.
his
And
third era with the Cavs, it would be
yeah,
unbelievable. You're
I don't know.
probably only getting a year out of him though.
Bronny probably would come off the bench for the Canton Charge, but drafting him just to get LeBron back would be worth it.
I almost made the comment. I almost made the comment when I said that earlier. I'm like, notice we haven't mentioned Bronny once. This is all about LeBron.
Yeah, the thing about Bronny is that he didn't even start at USC. He was very mediocre at USC. He doesn't look to be super good. But it seems to me that like the only reason he's going into the league is to not have to wait another year before he can play with his dad. That seems to be literally the only reason.
Well, and from his perspective, I mean, his dad's old. Like, he's getting older. He doesn't have very many years left. Like,
sure,
if you want even a chance of, I can play with my dad while he's still like competitive and can potentially like will a team to a championship win, I mean, go for it. Even if you're off the bench, like, just having that life experience with your father would just be amazing. So, and I hope it happens.
It'd be very entertaining to all of them back in Cleveland. It'd be very funny.
One last ride. I mean, I'm glad we're talking about this now, because if it happens, we're gonna be like, we're geniuses. We willed that into existence. So anyway, yeah, that's what we got. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, watching. We appreciate it. Once again, happy Memorial Day. And honestly, have a great week ahead. It's the last week of May, and then we're getting like the, technically it's still spring, summer is coming in. We will see you probably on the other side of one of these two finals. Sometime in June. We don't know necessarily when it's going to be, but we will be off for at least these next 2 weeks. And yeah, we'll be back to talk about whatever's going on. And hopefully by then we can talk some more movies, or there's more things in pop culture to talk about here as we enter the more blockbuster months, so to speak. Not as many this year, but we'll find something to talk about. We always do, right?
Yeah.
So any final thoughts? Any parting wisdom, Casen?
I guess yeah, the LeBron back to Cleveland.
Every day LeBron watch, another day closer to EA Sports College Football 25.
Oh yeah,
every day.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah, this is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And as always, we'll see you at the next stop.